This is Aimee Nielson, editor of World U.S. I'm here at ASTA's Vegetable and Flower Conference in Monterey, California. This year, ASTA hosted a panel on women in seed, perspectives for everyone. And so I decided to sit down with Payton Englert, one of the organizers of the panel and ASTA's Director of Government Relations. Welcome to the table, Payton.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
It was such a great
panel.
Yes, it was, and a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yes, I think it's really going to raise a lot of awareness, if it didn't already, during the meeting.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Well, let's just dive right into a few questions and some afterthoughts maybe that can take us further down the road. So how do you think the role of women in the seed industry has evolved over, say, the past decade? I know that, a decade ago, you might not have even been in the seed industry.
Right. Absolutely. I think, up until a decade ago, maybe the word seedsman would be all you would hear. And now we have women creating seed companies and leading seed companies and having women in positions that they wouldn't have been in even a decade ago, from not only leadership, but kind of on the ground floor in some of the production areas as well. So I think we've seen a lot of evolution in that space.
So in your experience then, how does female leadership uniquely impact the seed industry?
I think ASTA specifically has a great story to tell. We have 12 out of 15 members of our staff females. So we have females leading the helm of a lot of important issue areas, whether it be science and regulatory issues or our federal government affairs issues, leading our meetings. So I think ASTA provides a pretty great example of the amazing work women can do for the seed industry.
So what can we do to maybe increase women in leadership in our industry?
I think we can continue to increase women in the seed industry by continuing to have these conversations that we do. I think it's pretty remarkable that one of our highest attended sessions at every conference is always the Women in Seed session. And I think that says a lot about how willing we are as an industry to continue to grow in that space. So making sure that we're continuing with that momentum, I think, is super important.
So are there any notable contributions that you can think of that have been made by women to the industry?
It would be really hard just to pinpoint one. I've mentioned and brag a lot about how, all of our science and regulatory policy, Family Chow is heading that up, leading our communications. We have Katrina Bishop, government affairs, Janae Brady. All of these important facets of the industry are led by remarkable, intelligent, capable women. And that, I think that's as good as an example as it can get to women making an impact in the industry.
So do you mind sharing your career path, how you got to where you are at ASTA, maybe some challenges and hurdles that you experienced getting there?
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in a small town in northern Missouri. My family still farms there. We've got a family farm we've had in our family for about 65 years. So I think I saw a lot of the traditional side to agriculture, what you might think of, your grandpa goes out to farm, your grandma helps him out when needed, but primarily stays home. But they always empowered me to have a seat at the table, and especially doing policy work that hasn't always welcomed women as much as it does now. Prior to working at ASTA, I worked in politics, and sometimes I know politics can be fairly male heavy. So I was really excited to move to ASTA about 3 years ago, where we have a predominantly female ran team. We've got, I think, 13 out of 15 women here on staff. And it's just really incredible to work with so many women who not only are remarkable in their own right, but also empower you. There's no competition. Everyone wants everyone to succeed. And it's just really a great environment to be a part of.
Does ASTA specifically have any kind of culture of mentorship once you're in a role there?
It's funny because I feel like we do, but not formally. It just, our culture is just so much wanting everyone to win that I think it just allows for a environment to make you feel like you have a mentor although it's not kind of formally set.
I like how you said that, though. It's a culture of just wanting everyone to win, no matter if you are a man or a woman or whatever race or ethnicity or background you may come from.
Absolutely. And I feel like I have to also give a shout out to the men on our staff too. Because, I keep bragging about these awesome women on our team. That we have awesome men too who are empowering their female coworkers and not ever making us feel less than. And it's just truly, truly appreciated and a joy to work in that environment.
That's great. So what are some maybe that we should talk about, maybe gender specific challenges that women may face in the workplace in the seed industry?
I think one thing, and we focus some of our women in seed sessions on this in the past, is imposter syndrome. I think a lot of times, you can be the most capable, smart woman in the room, but maybe you don't always feel like you deserve to be there. Confidence is a big thing that speaking for myself, for me, knowledge is power. I always try to keep learning. It makes me feel more confident when I'm in a room, when confidence maybe is lacking a little bit when you're the only woman at the table. So definitely continuing to learn and embrace the cards you're dealt, but kind of go forth with confidence and try and conquer that way.
So this kind of opens up a discussion for even broader talks about diversity, equity, inclusion. And what steps do you think that we can take in the seed industry to create an inclusive environment for everyone?
Yeah. The seed industry is so globally diverse, and I think it would only make sense that the people at our conferences and the people on our teams making decisions mimic that. We are nothing without the great people that are a part of our industry, and continuing to make sure that we have open seats at the table is just crucial. We're an industry founded on innovation and forward thinking. And I think that you'll find that as you look around the room at a lot of our conferences and meetings.
So let's talk about the future of women in the seed industry. What does that look like for you? What do you see?
I see more and more women continuing to be in leadership positions in seed companies, in associations like ASTA. I see ASTA continuing to make sure we have the conversation about promoting women and promoting diversity in the seed industry. I mentioned that the Women in Seed sessions are some of our most attended sessions, and I think that speaks volumes over how important this topic is to folks within the seed industry.
Anything else you think would be important for our audience to know about this issue, or just encouragement that you might want to give?
Yeah, I think, when we're building out these sessions to have at these conferences, the Women in Seed session is not something that we just check the box. We really do put a lot of time and effort into making sure we have speakers that are going to provide value. If you were at our conference this year in our session yesterday, you would have heard so many different pieces of gold nugget advice throughout the session, and it's just super valuable to hear from women in the industry that have paved their own way. And I just want to encourage folks to continue to come and attend these sessions, because it really does empower you to want to continue to move up the ranks in the seed industry as a strong, capable woman.
I really appreciate you coming and talking about this with me today.
Thank you.
I can't wait to have more conversations about it in the future.
Yes, thank you for being one of those empowering women in seed.
Thank you so much. Next, I'm going to talk to Jason Sparks. He's the Global Head of Communications in Vegetables and Flowers for Syngenta. Welcome to the table, Jason.
Thanks to have me, Aimee.
I'm so glad to have you with me today. So, you spoke earlier on a panel about women in seed here at the ASTA Vegetable and Flower Conference in Monterey. And it was so enlightening that I decided that I needed to have you on to talk to the rest of our audience about this issue, because it's so important.
Absolutely.
So, in your opinion, how has the role of women in the seed industry evolved over the past decades?
One thing, I guess, to point out quickly is that first is agriculture is necessarily not a progressive industry in terms of we're not leading the change curve here. There have been improvements. They've been fairly marginal in older decades. I would say the past 5 years has probably been the most progressive we've seen in terms of companies taking a closer look at their DEI initiatives and the roles that women and minorities play in their companies.
Right, and we're not just talking about being inclusive with women. We're talking about it even broader than that, right?
Yes, that's the big piece, right? You're looking at making an environment that employees of all backgrounds, whether it's ethnicities, genders, religions, LGBTQ, anyone can feel accepted and thrive in your company.
Mm-hmm. So as far as leadership and representation in seed companies, how does female leadership uniquely impact leadership? I mean, impact boards, impact executive positions. You talked a little bit about it in the panel. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, having women in leadership brings a different perspective to a team. And that's true for any kind of diversity you're bringing into a leadership team. It's really important for when you're looking at bringing more creativity and innovation to a group, having those different backgrounds, perspectives in the room makes a huge difference. And we see this because if you look at, in decades past, a lot of these boards and executive rooms were filled with the same types of people, right? Predominantly white males. And that's not very diverse. And you get a very much of a group think. They all think the same way. They have similar experiences and backgrounds. And that's really hurting your company's ability to progress and be more innovative and creative. And so having women as part of the group is one step. And then also bringing people from different nationalities and backgrounds as well is another step.
So what can we do to increase representation in these roles?
Yes, it has to be very intentional. It's not enough to say like, oh, I support diversity and inclusion, right? And that, frankly, that feels hollow if you don't have actions behind it, right? You need to dig more into the data. Are you making an intentional effort to interview a diverse variety of candidates as opposed to your maybe old boys network of people from a certain university, a certain area of the country? Are you looking at the makeup of your different leadership levels in terms of what percentage of people in your leadership ranks are women? Companies have this data available to them. Are you looking at compensation and salaries, ensuring that there's equity in the pay and compensation that people are receiving, employees are receiving? So again, there has to be very intentional. You have to push and foster dialogue to get employees to understand the mission behind DEI efforts. You have to go above and beyond saying you just support it.
How important is mentorship and support in trying to further this goal?
Mentorship and support is really important. And there's two ways to look at it. There's, let's say you're a female in a company. It's important for you to find female mentors to help support your journey and people that understand being in your shoes and they can provide direction. But also it's good to have male allies as well. And this is a topic we spent some time in the panel talking about is the importance of the ally and having men involved in this process. Like to get real change, to make things happen, you need everyone involved. So one thing, we constantly pushing, especially at Syngenta, is the importance of the ally in the process of DEI and being an advocate and helping people feel more comfortable and open to participate and engage in the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember, I noticed when I walked into the room, I thought to myself, how many men are going to be in this session? Yeah. And quickly looked around the room, and it was mostly female. There were men peppered in, and some more came at the end. And I think you're exactly right. We do need input. We're not trying to just have a women's club. We need men at the table. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. And we want to be there on the same level.
Yes.
And so to do that, we need men in the room.
Yeah. I was talking to people earlier today before the panel about that I was going to be on this panel, and I was telling them I would wager money that room is going to be mostly all women. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the men outside the room didn't support the discussion that was happening in that room, but at times they didn't realize that that they were invited to be part of that. They know that they should have a role there, right? So that's also, again, going back to the intention, is that you need to make sure that men understand that they are welcome and included in those conversations, because again, they have such an important role to help foster and push that change forward. So that's a piece that, again, remains a challenge at times when you have some of these groups or discussions that maybe appear to be, oh, this is just for women. That's not true. It's for everyone, because everyone needs to participate in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that experiences of women in the seed industry vary across different cultures and countries?
That's a great question, because agriculture, especially vegetable seeds, is a very global industry, right? People from all countries around the world participate. And that presents another layer of challenge, right? Because then you're getting into each country's culture when it comes to agriculture and just even business in general. And each country is at a different stage. Some countries are much more progressive, and women are probably further along in their kind of journey there. But some countries are still very rooted in old ways of doing things, old ways of working. Growers and farmers have a certain kind of older way of doing business. So that requires that you need to put more time into understanding each country and the needs of that culture, and how you can approach having the conversations and promoting DEI in the right way.
Right. Well, yeah. Like your company, many companies within our seed industry are global.
Yes.
They have offices all around the world, and so there are so many variables and so many cultural things that they have to navigate.
Yeah, it's where we have the benefit, since we're a large company, that we have a team of people that are focused on DEI. 100% is their job, right? It's full-time DEI, and we have colleagues like that all around the world. And so they can help us put the focus that we need to ensure that we are respecting and appreciating the different cultures and the challenges of our employee groups around the world. We have resources to put in DEI programming in place. For example, this next week is going to be Inclusion Week for Syngenta across the world. So every day there are panels and webinars and resources available to employees to learn more, to engage in dialogues. Now, that doesn't mean that a small seed company can't also have some of these initiatives. They might have different levels of investment because the smaller company has different resources, but that doesn't mean they can't still participate and foster dialogues and try to connect better with their colleagues around the world.
So what do you see for the future for women, for all people being included within our industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, because as I mentioned early on in the interview, agriculture is definitely not the forefront of making this change in DEI. We are seeing some good progress in recent years, and you're starting to see, in roles that were traditionally dominated by males, like finance and R&D, you're starting to see more women rise up. That's a good start. I think there's still a big challenge on the commercial side. You're looking at sales teams and country or region leadership, still very, very heavily male dominated. So there's a lot of work to shift that mindset. And it also kind of connects with the customer piece too, because maybe customers are used to a certain way of doing business, and that happens to be working with a lot of males. So there's also maybe a shift externally we need to kind of push. One thing I am encouraged by is that the future generations are already more equipped to deal with DEI as a topic than we were in our past generations.
Well, speaking of future generations, you did tell a story in the panel about your own children, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing that with our audience today.
Sure. So I have two daughters, and last year during International Day for Women and Girls in Science, it's a really nice global observance of females working and girls are involved in any kind of scientific endeavor. And I was showing my daughters some of the really cool video content that we have as a company. I was showing some of our female scientists. And my 5-year-old looked up at me and she's like, girls can be scientists? And as I mentioned in the room, it's heartbreaking, right? As a father, that already you think your daughter is placing limits on her abilities in the world, right? And after my wife and I talked to her some more to understand kind of the root cause and kind of where that was coming from, we realized that she's not seeing a lot of representation already in her day-to-day world around girls being scientists and women being scientists. So that's brings in the importance of storytelling. And you as a journalist, you understand that, the more that you can tell a story and promote and highlight all these amazing female scientists we have around the world, that helps to shift the needle a bit. And younger generations will start to see that and realize this can be an opportunity for me. I can be a breeder. I can be a scientist, a researcher in an agricultural company. So that places a lot of importance for the companies to kind of push that out there. The storytelling and ensuring that younger generations are starting to see these possibilities in their world.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective today. I'm sure the conversation has only just begun, as we'll be focusing more on DEI and A in the future. So thank you so much, Jason, for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here, Aimee. Thank you for continuing to push this conversation.
That's great.